Picture this, it's July 1944. American soldiers are storming the beaches of Normandy. Marines are fighting island by island across the Pacific. The world is on fire. But 730 delegates from 44 nations are not at the front lines. They are gathered at the luxurious Mount Washington Hotel in New Hampshire. For 3 weeks, they will design the next world. You've been told this meeting, Bretton Woods, was about preventing another Great Depression. That is the story. It is not the truth. The delegates in that hotel were building something far more significant. They were building the permanent infrastructure for centralized control. They created the International Monetary Fund. They created the World Bank. They created a system that gave a small group of central bankers and technocrats control over world money. Control that was, for the first time, beyond the reach of democratic politics. The story of Bretton Woods is not about recovery. It's about a playbook where every crisis is used as an opportunity to centralize power, a playbook that is still being used today. To understand 2008, 2020, and the proposals for digital currencies you hear about right now, we have to go back to the chaos central banks couldn't control. Before 1914, the world ran on the classical gold standard. This system was not about control, it was about discipline. A government couldn't just print money. A dollar, a pound, or a franc was a receipt for a specific weight of gold. If a country's politicians spent too much, or printed too much paper, gold would physically leave the country to pay its debts. This forced the domestic money supply to shrink. It triggered an automatic, brutal recession. Wages fell. Businesses failed, it was a straitjacket, and central banks hated it. They were powerless. Then, in 1914, the Great War gave them their escape. Every major nation suspended the gold standard. They needed to print money to pay for bullets and artillery. The discipline was gone, the printing presses ran. By the end of the war, Britain had gone from being the world's biggest creditor to owing the United States $4.7 billion. That's $85 billion in 2025 money. After the war, they tried to put the system back together. It was a disaster. This is where the real crisis begins. In 1925, Winston Churchill, as Britain's Chancellor, made a fatal error. He put the British pound back on the gold standard, and he used the old pre-war price. But wartime inflation had made the pound worthless at that price. This decision made all British goods instantly 10% to 15% too expensive for the world to buy. It crushed British industry. Unemployment soared. A general strike paralyzed the nation. Meanwhile, France returned to gold at a devalued rate. This made French exports cheap. So what happened? Gold fled London. And it piled up in Paris and New York. The Bank of England was trapped. If it cut interest rates to help its dying economy, more gold would flee. If it raised rates to attract gold, the economy would die faster. The system was broken. Central banks were fighting each other. The 1929 Wall Street crash turned this broken system into open warfare. It was the start of the Great Depression, and it triggered a race to the bottom. In September 1931, Britain finally gave up. It abandoned the gold standard completely. The pound's value crashed by 25% almost overnight. This is called a competitive devaluation. It's a beggar thy neighbor policy. You are stealing growth and jobs from your trading partners. The United States followed. In 1934, President Roosevelt made the dollar 41% cheaper. He did it by raising the price of gold from $20.67 per troy ounce dollars per troy ounce. France held out until 1936, watching its economy be destroyed. The world shattered into hostile currency blocks. The sterling bloc, the dollar bloc, the gold bloc. Trade between them seized up. Global trade collapsed from $36 billion in 1929 to $12 billion in 1934, a 66% drop. This was the real problem for central bankers. They could manipulate money inside their borders, but international gold flows kept beating them. They had no global control. They were reacting to chaos, not managing it. But here's where the story really changes. In the middle of this chaos, in 1930, a new institution was created, the Bank for International Settlements, BIS. It was based in Basel, Switzerland. The public story? It was created to handle German reparation payments from World War I. The real story, that barely mattered. The BIS was a private club for the world's top central bank governors. They met every single month, away from politicians, away from parliaments, away from voters, and they discovered something. They preferred coordinating with each other ... more than they liked answering to their own elected governments. This is the playbook. Step 1. Use a crisis, German reparations, to justify a new institution. Step 2. Design that institution to operate beyond democratic accountability. Step 3. Use technical language so no one but experts can join the conversation. Step 4. Watch that institution outlive the crisis and expand its power. The BIS is still in Basel today. It is the central bank for central banks. It is the blueprint for Bretton Woods. By 1941, before Pearl Harbor, the planners saw their big chance. A second world war was coming. They knew it would leave Europe and Asia in ruins. They knew this would create desperate nations. Nations that would accept any system ... as long as it came with reconstruction loans. This was the ultimate opportunity. Not just to end the chaos, but to replace it with a new managed system. A system of control. Two men stepped up to design this new world. On one side, John Maynard Keynes, representing a bankrupt British Empire. On the other, Harry Dexter White, representing the new American superpower. Keynes was a brilliant economist. He had a radical plan. He proposed a new neutral global currency called the Bancor. It would be managed by a global central bank. His system had a catch. It penalized countries that ran either big deficits ... or big surpluses. This was a direct shot at the United States, which had a massive surplus. Keynes wanted a balanced system. Harry Dexter White wanted an American system. White's plan was simple. The dollar would be at the center of everything. And his plan included two new enforcers: an International Monetary Fund and a World Bank. These institutions would enforce the rules. They would enforce dollar dependence. This wasn't an academic debate. Keynes was negotiating from total weakness. Britain was bankrupt. It was surviving only on American Lend-Lease aid. Harry Dexter White held all the cards. By 1944, the United States held 2/3 of the entire world's monetary gold. It was the only major economy not turned to rubble. It's the golden rule. He who has the gold makes the rules. White's plan won. Keynes's plan for a neutral Bancor was thrown in the trash. The Bretton Woods Conference in July 1944. It was a rubber stamp. The 730 delegates were there to ratify a deal that had already been cut in private by the U.S. and the U.K. This is the hidden architecture they agreed to. Rule 1. The U.S. dollar is the only currency convertible to gold. The U.S. guaranteed it at $35 per troy ounce. Rule 2. All other currencies, the pound, the franc, the mark, were pegged to the dollar. Do you see the genius? This created a structural demand for U.S. dollars. Every central bank on earth had to hold dollars in its vault as reserves. The U.S. could print paper. The rest of the world traded that paper for their real cars, real factories, and real oil. This was the exorbitant privilege. But what if a country got in trouble? What if it couldn't defend its peg to the dollar? This is where the real control mechanism kicks in. This is the real purpose of the new institutions. If a country, like France, ran into trouble, it had to go, cap in hand, to the International Monetary Fund, IMF. The IMF would give France a loan, but that loan came with strings. It came with conditionality. This is the key word. Conditionality meant the IMF an unelected board of technocrats in Washington could dictate policy to a sovereign nation. The IMF could demand France cut its social programs, or raise its interest rates, or suppress its wages. It was a transfer of sovereignty. Power moved from a national elected parliament ... to an international unelected board. And who held veto power on that board? The United States. The World Bank did the same thing with long-term loans for reconstruction. It wasn't charity. It was the creation of permanent dollar dependence. The mask slipped very quickly. In 1947, Britain was forced to make its currency convertible as a condition of a U.S. loan. Within 5 weeks, so much money fled the country that Britain's reserves evaporated. The government was forced to humiliatingly end convertibility. The lesson was clear. Not even the British Empire could defy the new dollar system. If Britain COULDN single quotes do ... no one could. By the 1960s, the system was already a fraud. The U.S., paying for the Vietnam War and a great society at home, was printing far more dollars than it had gold. Foreign central banks held 4 times as many dollars as the U.S. had in gold. The $35 an ounce price was a lie. The bluff was being called. Countries like France started sending warships to New York, not to attack, but to redeem their paper dollars for real gold. So what did the central banks do? They colluded. In 1961, they formed the gold pool, the central banks of the U.S. Britain, Germany, and others ... pooled their gold to dump on the market. They were manipulating the price to keep it at $35. This wasn't a free market. It was a managed system. It was proof of the BI's playbook. They coordinate in secret to protect the system, but the bank run was too big. On August 10, 1971, President Nixon went on TV. He announced he was temporarily suspending the conversion of dollars into gold. He didn't consult a single ally, he did it by himself. Temporary has lasted 54 years. The Bretton Woods system of fixed exchange rates was dead. But here is what everyone misses: the system died. The institutions did not. This was the real genius of the 1944 plan. The IMF, the World Bank, the BIS, they survived, and their power grew. The IMF lost its original job monitoring gold pegs. So it found a new one, crisis manager. The 1980s Latin American debt crisis. When Mexico defaulted in 1982, the IMF stepped in. But it didn't just offer a loan. It imposed structural adjustment programs. This was conditionality on steroids. It wasn't just cut your budget. It was, you must privatize your water systems. You must sell your state-owned electric company. You must eliminate food subsidies. This was more intrusive, more total control than anything imagined in 1944. We were told we now had free-floating currencies. This was also a lie. It was a managed float. In 1985, the G5 finance ministers met at the Plaza Hotel in New York. They decided, in secret, that the U.S. dollar was too strong. They announced a coordinated plan to sell dollars, to force its value down. It worked. The Japanese yen appreciated by 50% in 2 years. This crushed Japan's export economy. It led directly to Japan's lost decade. A secret meeting of central bankers and politicians ... reshaped the economic destiny of a major nation. So much for free markets. The control was still there. It just went underground. And the playbook just keeps working. Every crisis, the control expands ... and never retreats. Crisis. The 2008 financial collapse. The system breaks. The solution? More coordination. The U.S. Federal Reserve creates emergency dollar swap lines. This gives unlimited dollars to other central banks. These emergency lines were never fully closed. They are now permanent infrastructure. Crisis. The 2020 pandemic. The playbook on steroids. Central banks coordinate trillions in new money creation. The Fed's balance sheet expands by $5 trillion in 1 year. Temporary emergency measures ... have become a permanent new reality, which brings us to today. The same institutions are now preparing the next system. The Bank for International Settlements, that old private club from 1930 ... is now the global headquarters for developing central bank digital currencies, CBDCs. This is the playbook's final chapter. Bretton Woods 2.0, a system of control ... implemented through technology instead of gold pegs. A system where every single transaction can be seen, monitored, and controlled. The public story of Bretton Woods is a myth. It was never really about gold. It was never really about stability. It was about creating permanent, unaccountable institutions. It was about transferring power from voters to technocrats. The 1944 system is dead, but the 1944 architecture of control is stronger than ever. The next crisis is coming, and when it does, they will offer a new solution. It will be technical, it will be global, it will be necessary. The question is, will it be the end of our economic problems? Or will it be the perfection of their control? Let me know what you think in the comments, and subscribe. We are going to follow the money and see who is right.